Hi, my name is Dr. Kendra Scheibe, a veterinarian with Just Food for Dogs, and today we're in my kitchen and we're going to be preparing fish and sweet potato using our Just Food for Dogs DIY kit. So I went ahead and prepped my ingredients here. So today we're going to be using cod, I'm spilling already, which I weighed out. I've also got my sweet potatoes, russet potatoes, green beans, and broccoli. And so first, the best step that I think to get started with is to cook your fish. You want to get that going. Again, I've weighed all of this cod out using my digital scale. It's the most effective and easy way I find to be really accurate with my measurements. Super simple. You can find those on Target, Walmart, Amazon. Pretty easy to find these days. And then what I did here is lined my baking sheet with parchment paper, and I'm going to go ahead and cook the fish. I was able to find these nice pieces of cod really easy in the frozen section at Costco, but you can also get them at your local supermarket or other big box store. All right, so we're going to put this in the oven as my starting point. I've went ahead and preheated my oven here, and we're going to check it after about 15 minutes, perhaps needing up to 20, but we'll at least get that going. All right, let's clean up my mess here. All right. We're going to go ahead next, get started on our potatoes, because those take the next longest amount of time. And so what I did here, as you can see by all of my vegetables, is I cut them into small bite-sized pieces. And I did this with keeping my dog's size in mind. So I have two dogs. I have a large, big dog. He's a Great Dane mix, Hank. And I've got a little one here who's extra helpful. This is Howie. And so what I did is coordinate the sizing of these potatoes and vegetables for kind of more of a Howie bite size. So nice and small. The beauty of doing DIY is that you can cut up the vegetables as you see fit. And so you can kind of customize them for your dog. So I've got my potatoes going in together, carefully, both the russet and the sweet potato. And you're gonna wanna make sure that you boil these until they're just slightly soft. So pop those into my boiling water here. I'm gonna get that going, and typically it takes right around 10 minutes or so, I find, especially when I have these small pieces, but we'll keep tabs on these, make sure that we're not making them too mushy here. Turn down my heat just a bit. All right, and so one comment as we get these potatoes going is that you saw that I had two different types. So we use russet potatoes and sweet potatoes. And so this recipe is very specific, just like all of our recipes using the DIY kits. And you want to follow them as precisely as possible, exact to be precise. And so what I mean by that is when it calls for sweet potatoes, make sure that you're getting sweet potatoes. You're not substituting everything with russet potatoes. And the reason is that even potatoes, even though they're from the same family and might have some similarities in their nutrient profile, they can be really distinctly different. And so the recipe is formulated using the two types of potatoes, and you want to make sure you get those in the appropriate volumes. And so you're creating the best well-balanced diet that you can. Again, having the ability to do these recipes at home in your kitchen is nice. You can customize bite-sized pieces and things of that nature. You can make it fresh for your dog, which they love. But you want to make sure you follow the recipes exactly as indicated, just like we do in our kitchens every day. It just ensures that you're feeding a well-balanced meal. And that is the way that these diets were tested when they went through AFCO feeding trials. And what that means is that all of these DIY kit recipes, including fish and sweet potato that we're making today, went through rigorous testing to make sure that they're healthy and well-balanced for dogs. And so just make sure that you follow that ingredient list very, very closely and accurately. Use your scale when you're doing measurements. And then that way you're creating the highest quality diet you can for your dog. Super important. The other special thing I want to comment on about fish and sweet potato is that this recipe is one of two of our diets that you can consider for growing puppies. And so fish and sweet potato, if you're at home and you're feeding a small puppy and you want to start them on fresh whole food diet right away, which is wonderful, then you can go ahead and consider this fish and sweet potato for puppies. Again, very, very important that you follow the recipe exactly as it's written so that it's as healthy as it can be and just right for that puppy or adult dog. Okay, so moving on. So I've got my green beans and my broccoli. Both of these, just like the potatoes, I was able to find fresh at my market. If every once in a while, depending on where you live, you have a hard time finding your produce fresh, go ahead and buy it frozen. You just want to use as much fresh as possible, especially if you're doing it all the time. So just take advantage of those fresh nutrients. All right, so what I'm going to do here is combine my veggies, and we're going to steam them. So there are quite a few ways that you can go ahead and steam vegetables. I liked my trusty cast iron skillet here, so I put a very small amount of water. We're gonna go ahead and spread them out here, and I'm just gonna gently cook or steam for just a few minutes until the veggies are starting to get soft, but again, not mushy. And so I'm gonna start that here. You can also consider using a steaming basket, or you can boil the vegetables, that's fine. I find with the broccoli bits, especially if you're using a lot of the tree tops, some of the pieces are kind of float away when you're doing the boiling, and so if you steam like this in a small amount of water, it might be helpful. Check on those potatoes, we're doing good there. Adjust our heat. All right, we'll get these started. I'm gonna borrow my lid here to create a better steam for my veggies. All right, while we're waiting for those, we're gonna talk a little bit about the components that we're gonna consider as a last stop right before we're done preparing the meal. So 2 things, the Just Food for Dogs DIY nutrient blend. You wanna make sure you get the specific one with the blue tab or the blue label, and that's for fish and sweet potato. Each of the DIY kits have a different nutrient blend or different vitamins and minerals inside the little pouch of nutrients, because it depends on what ingredients are being included in a recipe that calls for what nutrients need to be added to properly balance it. So you want to make sure that you use the fish and sweet potato blend when you're preparing this recipe. I've already measured out exactly what we're going to need in a few minutes when we're done. The last component here is safflower oil. Very important, again, with the oils, just like the other ingredients, that you source exactly the type of oil that's called for in the recipe. So you don't want to go olive oil, you don't want to go sunflower oil, you want to go safflower oil. And the reason is that this recipe is formulated using this specific oil because it has essential fatty acids that most properly balance the other ingredients that we're cooking today. So again, there's really good purpose behind each of the ingredients that are included in all of our recipes, so you want to follow them precisely. You don't want to go through all this work in your kitchen cooking up a homemade diet and have it not be properly balanced, because that would be obviously a disservice to your dog, and you're spending all this time, you don't want to waste those efforts. So make sure you get the appropriate supplies before you cook. All right, so we've got our fish going, we've got our veggies going, and we'll check back in a few minutes once these have progressed a little further. Okay, so my green beans and broccoli are just about ready. They're just soft, but not squishy yet. So we're gonna go ahead and drain these. Let's see here. Get them prepared to add to our mix. All right, and I'm gonna start putting things as they're ready into my big mixing bowl here, because the idea is that we're gonna want all of the food to cool down before we add in our oil, the safflower oil, and the DIY nutrient blend. So we'll give these veggies a chance to start cooling here. And we're almost ready for our potatoes. We've got just a few more minutes left on our fish. Looking good here. All right, and so with regards to the fish, I have a handy dandy tip here, and that is the use of this meat thermometer. And so what I have found in my cooking, both for my family and for the dogs, is that it's really useful to help me determine when the food is done. So for fish, I'm gonna use the thermometer here, and I'm looking for 145 degrees or greater in kind of the meatiest part of my fish. That lets me know that it's cooked thoroughly and it's gonna be safe and ready for us to prepare along with our other ingredients. The other thing that I have on hand, ready to go when my potatoes are done, is an ice bath. And so the beauty of doing this at home is that you want to you can create a really impressive looking meal for your dogs. And so part of that is maintaining the texture of our potatoes so that they don't get mushy. We don't want mashed potatoes in this diet. We have really beautiful cube potatoes that we worked hard to get. And so as soon as these are done cooking and they're soft but not mushy yet, I'm gonna go ahead and add ice to them after we drain it to stop that cooking process. And so it really helps maintain the texture of those cubes versus allowing them to continue to cook and get really mushy. So the next step, as soon as they're about ready here, test these. We'll see if we're getting soft just a little bit more here. Want some softness to them. Again, cooking these vegetables in this manner allows them to kind of already start a little bit of that breakdown process. And so when the dog ingests them, their digestive system really has an easy time of utilizing the nutrients. And so it's a really digestive whole food recipe, really great for even the sensitive dogs. A lot of dogs with tummy sensitivities or tummy troubles does really well on this particular diet. And so making sure we prepare everything as written in your recipe really makes sure that you're developing this diet properly. All right, I'm also getting alert from the oven here that we have about 20 seconds left on the fish, so we'll go ahead and check that with our thermometer, see if we're getting close to being ready or not. Okay, let's see if we're getting ready. A few more seconds here. So the great thing about this, all right, we're at 101 in my big piece there. So we're gonna let that continue. I started here for 15 minutes, so we might find that we need 3 or 4 more minutes left. Usually the pieces that I'm finding I can cook within under 20 minutes. Okay, check our potatoes. I think we probably are there. Oh yeah, okay. They're soft but not mushy. So we're gonna call that good on these potatoes. Turn off my heat here. I'm gonna drain these and then we're gonna take advantage of that ice bath. Okay. Howie's helpful here, right in the way. All right. Again, using the ice bath allows us to stop that cooking process. I'll do it over here so I don't make a mess. Stop the cooking process on those hot potatoes so that we can maintain that nice texture, all that work you did with the cubing. Just a few more minutes and our fish will be done. Okay, it's time to check our fish. We've been in for right at 20 minutes. And again, use my thermometer. Most effective way to see for sure if I've got to a safe temperature. Yep, I'm at 150, 151. So we're gonna go ahead and remove our cod. Looks nice, right boys? The dogs are over here getting ready. Okay, so meanwhile, while we were cooking that, my potatoes are done, and so what I did was add the ice in to cool them off. So I've got some nice cubed, remember we talked about this, they're not mushy, they're soft, but they're not squished up. So they're looking good. So first step, what I'm gonna do is move this out of my way here, and we're gonna put my potatoes in while I give my fish a second to cool. Okay. Starting to look good here. Making progress. All right, and I cooked that fish at 350 degrees in my oven, and it took just about 20 minutes. You know, you can see that I had smaller pieces there. So, you know, depending on your needs, you just want to make sure that you're making sure that it's cooked all the way through and kind of that nice flaky texture. So in here in my bowl starting to cool, I've got my broccoli, my green beans, my sweet potatoes, and russet potatoes. Nice texture, so everything has been cooked till it's soft, but it's maintaining texture nicely. Next, we're gonna get our fish going in. So let's see here. I'm gonna do, again, kind of small bite-sized pieces to fit the need of my dogs. And my smaller dog is Howie. Hank can have larger portions. But the beauty of this cod is that it kind of just flakes up real nice. Just gonna make sure I don't leave huge pieces for Howie, although I'm sure he would say he could manage. And we're gonna get it all mixed up in here with our veggies. And then give it ample time to cool. The importance of making sure the food cools before you add your oil and your vitamin to mineral blend is that you don't want to give any reason for that oil to kind of get rancid if it's combined with really hot food. And then with the vitamin and mineral blend, certain nutrients can be more heat sensitive. So if you add it to piping hot food, there's a chance that certain vitamins or minerals could be kind of affected by that shock with the hot temperature. So you want to give this food ample time to cool before you add the safflower oil and the DIY nutrient blend. So we'll keep going here with our fish. Then I'm going to let all of this cool. Okay, looking good. You know, and you'd think that this recipe would make your kitchen smell real fishy, but this cod is really mild. It doesn't have that same strong odor of something like salmon. So it's not as off-putting as you would think if you're sensitive to strong fish smell. Actually smells quite nice, but I am a little surprised that my 2 cats aren't joining us in here in the kitchen after having smelled this fresh fish. Okay. Again, I weighed out our fish properly on my scale. So everything in here is very precise. This is the half batch or half recipe. And then with this diet, it's a little bit different than some of our other versions that have meat or poultry as the main protein source. Fish can spoil a lot faster, even in the refrigerator. So after you prepare this meal, you're going to, obviously we talked about this, let it cool, add my oil and my nutrient blend, and then I'm gonna go ahead and package it up into Tupperware or Ziploc bags. I can make it into meal sizes for my dogs. I wanna feed all of this fresh food, keep it in the fridge, and then feed it within 3 to 4 days, because keeping it any longer in the refrigerator will give it time to potentially spoil. Fish just tends to have a shorter fresh life than meat or poultry. So just make sure that you have plans to feed this diet to your dog within the next 3 to 4 days after we prepare it and it's in your fridge. If you're not going to and you're doing big batches, then what you can do is portion everything out into the Ziploc bags or Tupperware and you can freeze it. And then that way it kind of prolongs the time that you have to use the food. Once you pull those prepared meals out of your freezer and you're starting to defrost them in your fridge again, then you still need to abide by that 3 to 4 day window in order to maintain freshness. You don't want to feed this a week in after it's been in your refrigerator only. It has potential to spoil. So essentially, you know, feeding fresh foods, you got to be mindful of these diets exactly like you would your own leftovers. You know, just be aware of how long it's sitting in your fridge to be sure it's fresh. Okay, so we're almost done here. And we're gonna mix everything up. And as I mix, those pieces of fish will get just a little bit smaller, which is fine. Look how pretty that is. Right. Veggies are on the bottom there. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and let this cool for a few minutes and then we'll come back, add our nutrients and do a taste test. Okay, so now all of our food has cooled. So we have all of our ingredients except for the nutrient blend and the oil. And so I've allowed it to cool. I've measured everything out here accordingly. So first I'm gonna do my safflower oil. Make sure you find safflower oil, don't substitute. Okay, I've got my helpers here. Hank is ready. It's gonna taste test. And Howie's over here on the other side of me, patiently waiting to see what they think of today's batch of fish and sweet potato. Okay, so I'm gonna evenly distribute that oil. Make sure I try to blend it up the best that I can. Okay. Smells good, looks good. Okay, and so now our fish and sweet potato DIY nutrient blend. So I like to do kind of half and then mix this up really well and then finish with the other half. Again, you just want to try to distribute as evenly as you can on cooled food, or at least room temperature. Whoop, making a mess here, Hank. Okay. And then after I feed the dogs right now, I'm gonna go ahead and portion this out into Ziplocs, or I prefer Tupperware. And then I'm going to refrigerate it because I'll go through all of this with my 2 dogs very quickly. It won't get to the 3 or 4 day window with Big Hank here. If you can't use it within 3 to 4 days fresh in your fridge, make sure you're gonna freeze it. Portion it out and freeze it so that you can keep it fresh for longer. Okay. All right, looks well mixed here. Make sure I can't see any of the powder left. All right, boys. All right. Now I'm gonna eyeball right now because I've been feeding long enough. I know what Hank and Howie, what their portion sizes will be for this recipe. But what I suggest you do if you're new to DIY is go to the calorie calculator online. You can type in your dog's breed, age, weight, activity level, and it can spit out for you a good estimate as far as feeding volume when you initially start serving. And then you can monitor their weight accordingly. If they're gaining too much weight, then you cut back. If they're losing, then you slightly increase. All right, let's see here. Okay, boys, get an early dinner tonight. Now, Hank's a big boy, and this is one of our lightest recipes. It's not calorically dense, and so it works really, really well for weight loss. But for big dogs like Hank, it's actually a really large portion size of this particular recipe because it's so low in calories compared to some of our other recipes like beef or lamb. All right, looks about right. Come here, boys. Let's see if they like it. Good boy, Howie's ready. Come here. Good boy. Wait. Come here. Good boy. Okay, can you guys sit? Good, Howie. Hank, sit. Hank, sit. Good boy. Wait. Ready? Okay, let's see. Success. Fish and sweet potatoes served up fresh. Good boy, is that yummy? Yeah, yummy? All right, all done for today.